Jared!
Hey, Chantal, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Nice to see you. Doing
Good to
well.
see you too. I'm so glad we could finally connect because I feel like this is the first time you and I have been able to connect. Well, maybe the second time that you and I have been able to connect professionally since you left John Jay, right? Because you were still a student going on to grad school working. And so this is the first time we've been able to talk and like you're ready to share your story and I'm glad you're here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So, Jared, um, why don't you start by telling us what you currently do, um, and give us like a quick 30 seconds, 30-second, tongue tied, 30-second spiel on how you got to your current career, and then we'll backtrack a little bit.
Sure. So currently I work for an urban residential college access program, Boys Hope Girls Hope of New York. Actually, got the swag on. Um, as the director of academic success. So in short, I oversee all academic programs for our residential scholars, specifically the boys, but I'm one half of the academic team. And I also have a counterpart on the girls side. In a nutshell, this is actually the organization that I was at directly after undergrad. Kind of the power of networking. Someone knew someone that I was friends with in the Urban Mill Initiative, which I'm sure I'll talk about more during this
Yes.
conversation. Um, and they reached out to them and was like, "We're looking for some strong young leaders to figure out and work in this organization." And so when I first got hired here back in 2015, um, I was the admissions and communications coordinator, kind of working through the the organization's re-enrollment enrollment process in general. So re-enrollment to admissions through everything, and then also working with some students and working on their communication, social media, internal email communication, and those types of items.
Okay. So, Jared, I want to backtrack a little bit because I think what's most impressive about your portfolio is how involved you were at John Jay while you were there, right? Honestly, in my entire time of being an administrator, of even being a college student and grad student myself, I've never met anyone more involved than you've been. And in fact, that's how we met, remember?
Yes.
You were a student you were in the Urban Male Initiative, UMI, and I would always see this young black man who always kept himself very professional, right? Always greeting me. You were always dragging some other student around, connecting them to someone. And I said to you, I need you to come work with us in the career center. Matter of fact, I begged you. I remember I
Yes, I did. Because I was like, oh, career services is not really fun. But sure, I'll come.
I remember begging you, and you were like, "Yeah, I've never thought about it before." And I said, "Please, please, please, I need you to work with us, please." And you said you'd think about it, and I went behind your back and spoke to Maria, who's the coordinator for UMI, and begged her to talk to you and convinced you
Which
to
she
come,
did.
right? And then that's how you and I met, and I never regretted a moment. So what I want you to talk about now is your involvement on campus. I want you to start by listing absolutely every single organization, every club, every initiative you've been a part of, every program you've been a part of at John Jay. And then we'll talk some more about that.
Wow, that's a tall order.
Do it. I know you could do it.
Cool. I guess if I just, it'd probably be easier if I went somewhat by years. It'd be easy. So in freshman year, I was a minimum AmeriCorps member in the Office of Community Outreach and Service Learning with Declan. So we worked on a lot of initiatives there with them. Um, was always a part of UMI. At that point, I was a mentee. Um, so working through that. Some of then I was involved a little bit with Habitat for Humanity because a lot of my friends in community outreach were part of Habitat. So I was doing like midnight runs with them and those types of things. Sophomore year, I had a short stint as the secretary of John Jay Radio, because after that we had some leadership things, and then I ascended to the role of VP in the organization. Um, From there, I was also part of the campus activity board, CAB. So working on like fashion show stuff. Then let's see, so that's kind of like sophomore year, junior year. So junior year gets big. So it's Vera Fellowship at the college. It is UMI as a mentor in the Peer Advocates program.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm also working in the Gerald Lynch Theater as a theater technician. That was something that came out of working with radio and working on big shows that I was speaking with Josh, and that became an opportunity out of there. Still a cab member, and I think that's it for junior year. Senior year becomes a little hectic. Um, so, peer career educator,
Mm-hmm.
you are my mentor still. Resident advisor in the New Yorker. Uh, did some work study work with the Office of Strategic Initiatives when there was a social media coordinator there. Still working in the theater. And I think that is, oh, no, chair of cab.
Nice.
And I think that's all, that's it. That's the long list.
That is a pretty long list. So let me ask you this. So two questions. One, how do you think your student involvement impacted your current career path? Do you think it helped you? Do you think because of your student involvement, you were able to sort of jump to where you are professionally? And then my second question is, tell us about the soft skills and hard skills that you got from your student involvement.
Sure. I think honestly, there's a piece of like I majored in my major at John Jay, but then I was also majoring in campus involvement,
Yeah.
and
What was
so
your major?
forensic psychology.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you
And
had minors, two minors, one minor?
yes, two minors, Africana studies and English.
Okay.
Yeah, so a whole list of things. Uh, but the biggest piece I think for me is like time management. I was involved in so much. There's only 24 hours in a day. I still needed to eat, barely slept, but I think it was all worth it. Right now in my role, I'm always working on a multitude of things at different times. And so I think the kind of divided, and not necessarily multitasking or divided attention, but having the ability to prioritize, give
Yeah.
different types of attention to different things, be
Yes.
able to kind of even meet deadlines. Even
Mm-hmm.
like as a club officer, a lot of times it's like you have to meet deadlines. Like you need to put this paperwork in to get this performer or to buy the supplies by this time. I've worked with budgets since graduating from John Jay. My first kind of real big stint with budgets was being a club officer. So I don't know why they trusted us with this money, but but we had to budget. We had to create a budget. We sat before the board of directors, BOD, defended the budget. So those types of skills of kind of being in front of, as I always call them, the big wigs, and saying like, this is what we need this money for. This is what we're going to use the students' money to do, and creating rationales behind that. I think the theater work introduced me a lot to just being kind of like a small fish in a big pond, because the theater is so like intricate in terms of production, front of house things, but kind of having my own position and working with people who were professionals. So that was something at John Jay that I necessarily didn't like. I got because I knew a lot of folks within student affairs and
Yeah.
academic affairs, but like the theater was like these were theater professionals. It wasn't really tied to school.
Yeah.
So that was
Jared,
something on that end. Good.
let me ask you something. When you interviewed for your current role and your role in Chicago as well, because you worked
Yes.
as a director for Res Life in
Mhm.
at Loyola,
Yep. Mhm.
did you talk about the skills and experiences that you gained from your student involvement?
Yes. Because we talked to a lot of the interview questions talked about what was your campus involvement. And so I was like, okay, that's a long list, but here are some things that
Yeah.
I would say that kind of stand out. A lot of times that stands out is Res Life, UMI, student leadership in terms of like clubs and orgs, peer career educator, because those are all different types of experiences.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so a lot of like necessarily even being like a younger professional, a lot of the skills that I still kind of utilize today have come from my student involvement.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's not a time where I'm like, oh, that's not really experience, even though now I'm a little bit removed from undergrad, but there are some skills that I still use to this day. Like I can still edit a resume in the way that I did back when I was in college.
Yes.
So it's something that I talk about and something that I try not to have people skip over, because all
Mhm.
experience is experience. And even when I now
Definitely.
work with my own students, I talk about how all these experiences about having leadership roles, how those can translate into kind of like the bucks.
Yeah. Okay. So, final advice for students who might be listening on student involvement.
Okay. It's gonna sound a bit, but try everything. Try your hand at everything. Like we started this conversation, I was not thinking about career services as a student involvement piece, but I got so much out of there and working there and meeting with students. Um, but there, I think, and also don't be afraid to be the first at something. A lot of times we go to school and we click to people that look like us, that have our similar interests, and you don't know once you kind of step out of that comfort zone. Always be in your learning zone. Be willing to learn. Be willing to be coachable. But so I guess there's multiple pieces of advice now I'm hearing it. Be willing to be coachable, but also just have a knack at it. And the worst that can happen is that it's not gonna work out. We're like, try that. I'm gonna work that out later.
Yeah. Try something, right? I love it.
Yeah,
Jared, thank you so much for chatting with me.
of course.
Um, it was such a pleasure to connect with you in this way because I don't think we talk often, but we don't talk about your experiences and we don't reflect on your experiences and even our interactions together. We don't reflect on that often, but this was good. And I think a lot of our students would find it helpful. Thank you again. And for those of you who are listening and watching, if you have any questions for our John Jay alum, Jaraed Thomas, please email us at careers@jjay.cuny.edu. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and now we're on the YouTubes. So see you soon. Thank you, Jaraed.
Thanks.